Okay, so this is the first edition of Pride and Prejudice. This is the first edition of Mansfield Park. In the author section, it just simply said a lady. This is her actual writing desk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Harry's Book Cafe. Today's video is gonna be a little bit different than usual. So instead of the traditional book review, we are going on to a literary pilgrimage. So let's jump in the car and let me tell you a little bit more. We are currently on M25, aka the largest car park in Europe. This motorway is notorious. We are going to a small English village called Chawton in Hampshire. Specifically, we are going to Chawton House, where Jane Austen has written and revised all her 6 published novels. So this is a literary pilgrimage of the highest caliber. Let's go. Guys, we have now arrived at the village of Chawton. This is so traditionally English. Okay guys, right in front of me is Jane Austen's cottage. So let me just turn the camera around. So this is where she has written and revised all 6 of her novels. We are a little bit early to go inside, but let me use this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about her life. So Jane Austen was born in 1775 in a small English village called Steventon. She had a large family. She had 1 older sister and 6 brothers. Her dad worked as a clergy in the Church of England, and his income alone was quite sufficient to support the entire family. However, this all changed when he died unexpectedly in 1805. His death left Jane Austen and her sister and mother in a pretty terrible economic needs. Because of this necessity, they have to move around. They have to leave their own cottage in Steventon and move to the seaside town of Southampton and Bath. They live in those places for 4 years, and those 4 years were the least productive and the least happy years of Jane Austen's life. All this, however, changed 4 years later when Edward, one of Jane Austen's brother, unexpectedly inherited a very large estate of Chawton. In fact, that's where we are now. And the cottage behind me is just one of the properties on the estate of Chawton. Rather generously, Edward gave this cottage to Jane Austen, her mum, and her elder sister, Cassandra. So from that moment on, Jane finds her creativity again, finds her stability, and it's in that house that she has revisited and written all 6 of her published novels. Guys, we are now inside the cottage, or the yard of the cottage. Let me show you around, it's quite cool. So they actually have the Regency period clothes hanging up to give you a sense of authenticity. So this is her cottage. Before we go into the cottage itself, I want to talk about how Jane Austen had died. She died at a very young age of 41. Now, the popular theory previously is that she has died of Addison disease or Hodgkin disease, which is basically a cancer of the limb. However, more recent scientific discovery, medical discovery, believe that a third disease actually fit Jane Austen's symptoms much better, and that is systemic lupus erythematosus, which short for lupus, which is an autoimmune disease. Although this disease is not curable, it is, however, manageable by modern medicines. This is the famous quotation from Mr. Darcy on the next day after he's failed proposal, he gave this letter to Elizabeth, which is the starting point of Elizabeth's change of mind. Okay, so we are now in the kitchen. This is her exact kitchen and exact replicate of what her kitchen looked like, including all the china. This is the actual chair from Steventon where she was born.
There's another one of those upstairs. It's usually here, but they put it upstairs for some reason.
I have practiced on the piano just like this every morning. So we have come to the most famous room. That there was the table she wrote her novels. I've just been told by the staff here that the wallpaper is the exact replicate of the one that she lived at the time. And a very interesting fact here that not many people know is this cracking door. This door, at the time of Jane Austen, squeaks every time someone opens or closes it. Her sister, Cassandra, wants to oil it, but Jane Austen was dead against it because at the time, women is not appropriate for women to write novels. So this door served as an alarm system. Whenever someone comes in, it will squeak, and that will give Jane Austen ample time to hide her manuscript, which leads us to here. This is her actual writing desk. As you can see, it is absolutely tiny. I can't really touch it to show you the scale, but I would say it will fit a modern laptop, 15-inch, and no more. So it's a very small desk. And as I said, that's the squeaking door that would give Jane Austen ample alarm when someone comes in. The position of the table, by the way, is not known for sure. This is where the staff believe that Jane Austen placed her table, right next to the window so the light can come in. Apparently, Jane Austen didn't really have a good eyesight, so this seems to be the most logical place to put her table. In Regency time, this was a dirt farm road, very idyllic. Okay, so this is the first edition of Pride and Prejudice. As you can see, the author it did not say Jane Austen's name, rather author of Sense and Sensibility. And when you check out Sense and Sensibility, all it says is that book by a lady. So this is the first edition of Mansfield Park, the first edition of Northanger Abbey. So this is her actual bedroom. I can't believe this. I'm standing in the actual bedroom of Jane Austen. One of the greatest author ever.
1813. Chawton. The story. An essay on writing. A critique on Walter Scott. Or the history of Bonaparte.
This was her view as soon as I come into the cottage. Sense and Sensibility was Jane Austen's first ever novel. In the author section, it just simply said a lady. In her subsequent publications, for instance, Pride and Prejudice, the author section says the author of Sense and Sensibility. So in none of her books, her name was actually mentioned. And the reason for that is because during her time in the Regency England, for a woman to engage in earning activities, especially upper middle class lady like herself, to engage in earning activities is the most inappropriate. And writing itself is considered as expose oneself. So it's one of the least appropriate action a woman can take, and hence why all of her novel was actually said a lady rather than her actual name. Okay guys, that's the end of this video. I hope you have enjoyed this rather unusual format. Next week, we are going back to normal and do some traditional book review. So if you like this video, please share with your friends give it a thumb up and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheerio.
你要这个吗？不要。不要。天，我这怎么这么肥？李青川。